Welcome back to Around the Clock. I now have Lyn Moraghan. Lyn is a lieutenant in the Ashland Fire Department. Lyn, welcome to Around the Clock.
Thank you, Yolanda.
It's
a pleasure to be here.
Excited to have you. Let's start with a little bit about you. So I'm sure people see you around. You know, one of our few women firefighters.
Absolutely. Well, how far do you want to go back?
Well,
when I came to this country?
Sure.
Well,
let's start with what brought you to the United States.
I grew up in Ireland, in Dublin, and when I was 18, I left because there was no employment, there was no job opportunities in Ireland back in '86. I had an uncle that lived here and an older brother that was also here. So I decided to take a chance and come over here and see what opportunities were out there for me, and I never turned back. You know, there's so much opportunities here in America compared to Europe at that time.
Right.
That it was just once I hit soil, I fell in love with it. So I really feel like this is my new home now.
Nice.
I mean, I've been here a long time.
So you came in '86. What led you into the fire service?
The fire service, well, it's kind of a funny story. I used to own a house cleaning business, and one of my clients had a mature daughter that had a head injury, and she was prone to having seizures. And I befriended her. We became very close, and I had an opportunity to witness some of these seizures because I was with her a lot, and I was fascinated by it, and thought that, boy, I wish I could do more, I wish I could help, and that kind of led me to taking an EMT class, finding out a little bit more about it, and once I took the class, I was looking for employment. So I had just moved to Ashland from Framingham, and I said, well, you know what, I got to get some experience. So I knocked on the fire department's door, and they directed me towards the chief, and he handed me, I was just looking to volunteer my time and just get experience on the ambulance. I really didn't know anything about the fire service over here, because in Europe, the ambulances are based out of the hospitals.
Right, it's done differently.
So it's a little bit differently, yeah. So the chief said, well, you know, we don't really do the volunteer thing. We have a full-time department and we have a call department, which is part-time. And we'd love to have you on board. He handed me a pager and said, when it goes off, come in. So it went off once, twice, and I just sat there and looked at it, and I was terrified. And I think the third time it went off, I finally showed up.
Oh, wow.
And I fell in love with everybody on the department. Everybody was so warm and inviting. And I fell in love with Ashland. And then the more calls I came in and got introduced to, the more I started to see the fire side of it. And so I started taking some courses at the Mass Fire Academy. Okay. And I loved it. I loved both sides of it. I liked the medical side. I also liked the fire side of it. And I was hooked. I kind of never looked back. I had an opportunity to get hired full-time in '97, and since then it's just been one hell of a ride.
So you've been a full-time Ashland firefighter since 1997?
Yes, I joined the call department in '94. Okay. So 24 years I've been on with the Ashland Fire Department.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're one of our longer-serving
I guess I'm one of the senior members.
Senior members.
Sure.
And you are a lieutenant.
Yes.
So what does that entail? Because I know people will see, okay, well, there's an officer, there's a lieutenant. We know what the chief does, but what does a lieutenant do?
In our department, if anybody knows anything about the fire service, it depends on the organization, how the rank runs. In our department, it's small, so the lieutenants are actually the shift commanders, the shift officers. So we run the shift. Okay. So if you were to go to Cambridge or to Boston, the person that runs the shift could be a battalion chief, a deputy chief, but in this department, the rank is a lieutenant. Okay. So we go on all the calls with the firefighters, and we do administration work, but you know, basically you're running the shift. You're in charge of the shift. You're the manager of the shift as a lieutenant.
Okay. Question, because I was at the farmer's market on set. We were at the farmer's market and there was a call, and of course the ambulance and the fire truck came from Cedar Street.
Yes.
And someone asked the question, well, why didn't they just come from downtown?
Yes.
Now I know the answer, but why might they come from Cedar Street versus downtown?
Downtown we have 3 firefighters, and that's the full complementary of the firefighters that are on per shift. There's 3 firefighters at Station 1, which is downtown, and then there's the lieutenant at Station 2, the shift officer. So what happens is that during the course of the day, the firefighters at Station 1 will come over to Station 2 and check all the equipment, and usually have lunch, so we get an opportunity to interact. We also have a dispatcher. We do our own dispatching, and that dispatcher, we have a dispatcher that is assigned to each group. So they're part of the crew. So it's nice for the downtown crew to come down to see the street, not only to check all the equipment that we have, to make sure that they're running, functioning normally, but also to keep the continuity of the group together. It's important. So that's one reason why they may have come from Cedar Street. Another reason is they may have been on a call on that side of town and just cleared it, and then another call came in. So that's why we came from the other side of town.
Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the fire department because we're here to talk to you, Lyn Moraghan. You have 2 things I want to talk about. The first is your camp bailout program. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. The camp bailout program is a program that I designed, and the goal of the program is to introduce teenage girls to the EMS services and the fire service in a safe and controlled atmosphere. So what we do is we have a Monday through Friday, 1 week in the summertime. The girls apply with applications, and they can be from the age of 14 to 21. And they write me a little essay about somebody special in their life, so I get to know them a little bit beforehand. And they come and they spend 5 days with us, and they learn all about team building exercises, which is a big component of the fire service, leadership skills. They learn about EMS, the EMS services. They learn a little bit about firefighting. But the biggest part of it is the teamwork aspect of it, and the leadership, getting their confidence out. I started this program in the hopes that we could increase the very low percentages of women in the fire service and the EMS services. I can't take complete credit for this. These camps were already established. These camp programs were already established in some of the bigger states like Arizona. I went to a leadership conference, and one of the actual seminars that I went to was these fire camps, and they were trying to encourage women in leadership roles in the fire service to start these camps so that they could boost. At that time, the percentage of women was 2.5%. Compared to men in the fire and EMS services. So they were trying to figure out, what can we do to entice them? What can we do to bring them in? So somebody came up with the idea of creating this environment where you had professional women firefighters that ran it. So the girls may be less intimidated. Because I have to admit, I was a little intimidated when I knocked on the door of the fire station and this big firefighter came out, and then the next one was just as big, and the next one was just as big. So it can be very intimidating, even though it's something that you feel you have a passion for. It's hard to make that first step. So what the camps are trying to do is create an environment that's safe, but also it encourages these young girls to be young women by the mentorship of women that are already in the profession and are doing well or enjoying it. So it's a great atmosphere. It's a great opportunity. And my goal is not necessarily just to have all the girls that graduate go into the fire and emergency services. My goal is to have the girls show up and be nervous and unsure, and then after 5 days, they've bonded with the other girls. You see a confidence about themselves, how they feel about themselves, and I think that is so important with the young women today.
It is. And how long have you been doing the program?
Camp Bailout has, we're going into our 6th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of the young women that have gone through
Seventh
it,
year, sorry, 7th
okay,
year, yeah.
have any of them gone on to then become
Yes,
firefighters
yes.
or
What
EMTs?
we do is we have, I'm not sure if you've had anybody on talking about Explorer posts, but an Explorer
not yet.
post is an extension of the Boy Scouts of America.
Okay.
And what you find, posts, they're usually police Explorer posts and fire Explorer posts.
Okay.
And what they do is they take usually kids that go from the Boy Scouts, they're a little bit older, and they're interested in the fire or
Okay.
interested in the police department. And these posts, they meet twice a month and they learn about, basically, it's very similar
services.
to the camp,
Yeah.
but it's ongoing all the
Yeah.
time. So what I designed was any girls that were interested after they left the camp, that they could transition right into these.
Explorer programs.
Ashland had its own
Right.
Explorer post. So we've had quite a few girls that actually have transitioned and are on the Explorer post. They can be on the Explorer post till I believe they're 18.
Okay.
And then they can join our call department at the age of 18.
Wow.
So that, you know.
Yeah,
So
there's a process
there's
to
a
get them there.
process. There's a process. And not all the girls come from Ashland, so there's Explorer posts everywhere in Metro West. So I know a young girl that came last year, she joined the Explorer post, but she lives in, I think, Millis.
Okay.
So she's out in that area, and
Yeah.
she's joined their call department. So
Nice.
it's very rewarding. But like I said, it's not really. The initial idea was to boost those percentages,
Right,
but
right.
I've fallen in love more with the way I see these girls change. That's more important to me, how they build this confidence and how we're able to encourage them. We have many different professional women that come in during the course of the 5 days. Our own officer, Stacy Kaiser, comes in and
Yep.
talks to the girls. So they get to see not only professional women in fire and EMS, but a lot of different
Right.
professions. So maybe they're thinking about, well, maybe I'd like to be a life flight pilot
Right.
or a life flight nurse.
Wow.
So I have them come in and talk to the girls and open their eyes, and they see women in those
Right.
positions.
Right.
And sometimes, especially with teenagers, they kind of have to see it to believe it.
Yes.
So I try to get as many professional women in all aspects and different jobs to come in and do a little talk with the girls, and then the girls can ask them all sorts
Yeah.
of questions.
And now, because of the Camp Bailout program, you were nominated for the Athena Award this year.
That's correct. Yes, that was quite
What was
quite an
that
honor.
like?
Well, I think I was a little overwhelmed.
Uh-huh.
I can honestly say that I was very overwhelmed when our current town manager, Mike Herbert, spoke to me about it. I didn't know anything. I'm a little embarrassed to say I didn't know anything about the award prior to this. But when he said that the old town manager, John Petron, had called him and gave him the nod and said, maybe you should consider me for it. He talked to me a little bit about it, and I was chuffed. This was such an honor to be nominated. And then I did a little bit of research, and then I was even more overwhelmed because these women that had won it before, just even the nominees, what they've accomplished in their lives and the professionalism of them, just to be part of that group.
Yeah.
Just to be nominated to me was fantastic. It was something I'll never forget.
So for people who don't know, the Athena Award is an award given out by the United Way and here in our area, the Metro West Chamber, for women who have gone above and beyond in their careers. And for you, with your Camp Bailout, trying to increase the numbers of women in the firefighter
Yes.
and EMS, I think it was great to be able to sit there and help honor you as a nominee, because I think as women, it's interesting when you walk into certain places that there aren't as many women doing things, and you go, but it can be that way.
Oh, yeah.
So we certainly need to keep encouraging young women to
There's a
put
lot of
themselves
women
out
out
there.
there, and it's not
Yeah.
until you go into an atmosphere like that that you see just how many professional
Yeah.
women are out there
Yeah.
and the levels, the high levels that they're able to get to.
Yep.
It was definitely an honor to be nominated and an honor to represent the town of Ashland and the Ashland Fire Department. Sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Lyn, before we let you go,
Yeah.
I have one question I always ask visitors, first-time visitors to Around the Clock. And the question is there something about you, Lyn, that people may not know that you'd be willing to share publicly with our viewers?
I talked about being Irish. You
Right.
guys know that. Let me see. I love golf.
Oh, I did not know you were a golfer.
I love golf and I love the Cooking Channel. If I didn't watch
Oh.
anything else on TV besides those two channels, I would be very content.
Well, that's good to know. We'll have to get
And
you out for some golf.
I'm not a great cook, but I just love watching it, and I'm not a great golfer, but I
Right.
really enjoy watching all the different
Uh-huh.
tours that they have.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably something that people don't know about me.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And one last thing, we're going to change our setup, and we have someone else to share with you before we let Lyn go. So give us 1 minute, and we'll be right back. And before we let Lyn go, we have one more person that we would like you to introduce you to. Lyn, tell us who this lovely creature is in front of us.
This is Skylar. Skylar is my new therapy, well, she's in training, but she's my new service canine.
And you've done this before, had service
Yes,
canines.
we have. My last dog, Dublin, I'm sure a lot of you folks remember Dublin. Dublin worked with me on the fire department for about 10 years. And her service was search and rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So she went on multiple missions to try and find lost peoples in the woods.
Wow.
But Skylar here is going to do some therapy work. I'd like to get her certified as a therapy dog. I think there's a big need out there in the fire service and EMS, the veterans coming back, Children's Hospital, love to get in there with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our goal. She's still a puppy and still has a lot to learn, but she definitely has the right disposition to be a therapy dog.
Well, she sat with us our whole interview, so she did a great job.
Yep.
And it's nice to share her with everybody. Thank you for bringing her in. Thank you for coming to Around the Clock.
Well, thank you for
It was
inviting me. I had a great
talking
time.
to you.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And maybe once Skylar is trained, we'll have to have you come back and you can tell us
Absolutely.
all about it.
I would love to.
Great. Thank you. And that's it for this segment of Around the Clock.